Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chia and currently I'm going through a reading slump. It's terrible. I got into this reading slump the moment I finished reading Onyx Storm. It's been about a couple weeks now since I finished this book, and I've read 2 books since then, and I've been so underwhelmed. I gave myself a couple of days to just reel in my emotions for all the stuff that happened at the ending of Onyx Storm, and right now I am so desperate for another read that it's seriously starting to frustrate me, the fact that I don't have any reads right now that I'm really enjoying. And first of all, apologies for if the lighting is going in and out. It is currently a rainy day here, perfect reading weather, so I thought it would be a perfect time to try to get out of this reading slump. The 2 books that I've been reading so far since Onyx Storm was, first, I continue on with the House of Devil series, and this one is the City of Souls and Sinners, and this is a common theme in these books. This one is about 862 pages long, and I thought it would be a great idea to start reading this right after Onyx Storm because the male main character in this book, Darren Castle, has the same sort of vibes as Xaden. Not equal vibes whatsoever because Xaden is the better one in my opinion, but Darren Castle has sort of that tough protective instincts where he's so obsessed with his girl, and I absolutely loved him in the first book, so I decided to dive into this one because I felt like it would, give me a band-aid on the void that I have for Onyx Storm. But this one kind of disappointed me. I'll talk about this more in my wrap-up at the end of the month. I don't know, maybe, I don't know if it was due to my slump or because of the fact that I just couldn't get into the story. I honestly think it was too long, and some of the things that happened in this story just kind of irritated me, and it just got very repetitive, so I kind of gave this a lower rating than I would have probably. I'm really starting to get disappointed with the series because I heard that the second book gets way better than the first one, and I honestly actually really enjoyed the first one because it introduced me to the world, and then I thought it would be the same with this one and I would just fall in love even more. But unfortunately it kind of fell flat for me. Again, I will talk about this more in my wrap up, but I feel like it just put me more into the slump. So the next book I thought I would pick up was This Woven Kingdom. And okay, I don't know why I'm trying to read fantasies when I know I'm being in a slump that was from a fantasy book. This one was kind of meh too because I felt like the characters were boring. The only kind of biggest thing that I loved about it is the female main character. It's a dual POV, so every other chapter they switch between the male main character and the female main character, and I think the biggest detriment to this book is the male main character. I found him giving so much Tamlin vibes, it wasn't even funny. And I know that it continues on to the 2 more books, and I think it's supposed to be a 5-book series, but this one I felt underwhelmed with as well. Starting to think that maybe it's just not the time to read the fantasy books right now. This vlog will not end until I get out of this reading slump because reading is literally my favorite hobby ever. I have really bad anxiety, and reading is one of the only forms where I can shut my brain off and just focus on something else without having to worry a lot about the things that I'm thinking about. But this one is putting me into such a bad, frustrated mood because I can't seem to pick up a book without feeling like I am so underwhelmed by all of it. When I am looking into a book, I need to feel the connection to the story. I don't want to feel like I'm actually reading. I want to feel like I'm transported into the world, because when I feel like I'm actually reading and I just see words on paper rather than seeing the visuals in my head, which I'm really good about seeing when I'm in the middle of a story, but this time I'm just so underwhelmed and I'm so desperate for a connected read that I'm just gonna go through all my little solutions of when I do have a reading slump. And this reading slump has been the worst one since I have started reading, so you can see how I feel when I spent years without reading and then diving into reading again and falling in love with it for a year and a half, and then all of a sudden falling into a slump where I can't pick up any book and be interested in it. It's kind of driving me crazy. Come along with me as I try to get over this slump. So I decided to pick up Riftborn. Riftborn is another one of those indie published books that I've been hearing a lot about. Apparently it follows a a character named Fia, and the Riftborn are very ostracized because they have rebellion marks that mark them as a part of the rebellion that kind of tried to go against the society. But of course that rebellion was like snuffed out, and then it caused a lot of their family members to kind of pass away. All she has left is a friend that she has who also is a fellow Riftborn. Her name is Osta, and I guess Fia has like sort of like a hidden power that's dangerous. She works at apothecary, and she does like deliveries and like helps make sort of like apothecary potions. She has to deliver these like potions over to this party that the sort of like elite is having, and I guess like she kind of is starting to leave and runs into some sort of conflict where she accidentally sort of uses her powers on two of these girls who are bullying her, and unfortunately the general ends up seeing her use her powers, and she ends up thinking that she like killed these two girls, and then the general, he sort of blackmails her into being a part of the guard so that he can make a full sort of like group that has all these powers that are very strong, and he wants an army, and we don't know his reasonings yet on why he wants to teach her how to use her powers and why he wants her specifically. I'm kind of enjoying it so far. I'm still a little bit bored in all honesty, and I'm 136 pages in, so I'm trying to push through. Like I said, I'm so badly into like a reading slump right now, and again, apologies for the lighting if it's a little bit like off, and I thought it would be cozy to just like curl up with like a coffee and then like this book, but right now I'm just so not having it. I'm so bored by the characters, like I don't care about what's going on, so I think I'm going to just like put this down for now, go into maybe reading another type of genre, because this, I'm sorry, but I really don't care. I'm so beyond frustrated with how I'm feeling right now because I just want to lose myself in a book. I have like so many thoughts in my head right now, and I just want everything to quiet down, and I can't do that because I have no books that are catching my interest. I really don't care about the female main character in this book. I just feel like she's a little bit too whiny for my liking. I just have to sit back and see the story unfold, which is what has to happen in every single book that you read anyways, but I'm just like not having it, and I just don't want to go through the pains of doing that. So this is a part of my February TBR, so I will continue it, but I might just put it aside for now, and I think I'm gonna go in and try to read A Court of Thorns and Roses. I think it's time for the reread, and I'm hoping that it will help me like go through my book hangover at least right now. I heard that sometimes rereading a book you absolutely love will help, and I'm about like maybe just like the first chapter in. It's weird rereading a book knowing how everything goes on and how everyone develops in this book. I started reading the first chapter again, and I forgot how much I hated Nesta and Elaine in this book. They were so worthless to their sister, and the fact that like Nesta and Elaine are both the older siblings, and they couldn't even lift a finger to help Feyre out. They let their little sister go out into the woods, in the dangerous woods, to bring back food for them and kill things and risk her life in order to feed them, and whenever she came back from hunting, in order for them to survive and live, Nesta would just berate her and tell her how she was dirty and everything. I'm like, excuse me? I am happy that Nesta got her own book, because even to this point, if like she didn't get her own book, I would have definitely for sure hated her the whole entire series. And Elaine is just, I think she's making me even more mad because she's so uncaring. She's so unwilling to do anything. She's not necessarily mean to Feyre, but she just sits back and watch everything happen. Like, come on. And she just plants flowers the whole entire time. I'm like, seriously, Elaine? You couldn't have used those soils to grow some vegetables or anything, at least to help out with like the stuff that Feyre brings home? Feyre uses whatever money she gets from hunting to give to Elaine to get seeds for flowers. Like, unbelievable, because she can use that money to get more food for her family. Like, I don't understand. It's grating my nerves a little bit, but I will continue on and see if this reread will help me get out of this book slump. Okay, I'm coming back with an update. This is just not doing it for me right now. I think I'm going to probably stop forcing myself to read right now and maybe play a video game on my Steam Deck right now. Forcing myself to read is just like really like frustrating me at this point, so I'm gonna give my brain a break, and I think one game that I'm gonna try to play on my Steam Deck is probably Faith Farm. My boyfriend got this for me maybe around Christmas time, and I haven't made really like a much of a dent to it, so right now I'm just going to give my brain a break from trying to read, because I am so like beyond it's like my brain is just not engaging with anything on the page, and it's right now currently where I'm just reading words on page at the moment. One of my favorite series right now is just not doing it for me, so I'm just gonna put it down and then eventually pick it up later for a reread. But as you could tell, I'm just not having a good time. It's been kind of like a bad week mentally anyways, so right now I'm going to do another type of remedy for my book slump. So I'm going to game, and hopefully that'll give my brain a break for a few hours. So I'll come back with an update once I decide to pick up another book. So I've decided to move on to contemporary romance. I am like at my wit's end right now because I keep reading books that are just not catching my interest. I'm hoping this one is going to help because I can't take this anymore. So this one is 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This has been out for a couple years now, I think 2023. I've been hearing a lot of like good things about this book. Apparently it follows a character named Clementine. Unfortunately, her aunt passes away and Clementine inherits this apartment in New York City where she used to spend like maybe every single year with her aunt. Her aunt is her mom's sister and they were really close. So it's her basically dealing with the grief of losing her aunt, and so she's living in the apartment that her aunt owned, and she finds out that it's like a time traveling kind of apartment. She falls asleep one day and then she ends up getting woken up by a stranger, and the stranger is like 7 years in the past and his name is Ewan, but I guess that's his middle name. His actual name is James. But yeah, they end up meeting in like a chance where he kind of wakes her up saying that, oh, he's subletting the apartment from her aunt, but of course she doesn't believe him because he seems like that he just like broke in or whatever. And then he shows her a letter that her aunt like left it to him to sublet for the couple of months. But then again, I'm like, why didn't the aunt just like tell her that she was subletting the apartment to somebody else? So far, I'm like 25% in, maybe 100 pages in, and it's like going back and forth between the past and the present, because it's her going into the past of like 7 years where she meets the Iman guy. And I don't know, I'm feeling it okay, because I feel like it's like exactly what a contemporary romance should be. It's not too, it's fluffy. This only big seriousness is the fact that she's dealing with a lot of grief, and every single other moment when she's dealing with through her work life. And she's one of those work life people where she spends like 12 hours a day every single day in her job, and she aspires to be like the director of publicity in her marketing firm for the foreseeable future. She's in the running for it, but in order to do that, she has to sacrifice a lot of her life. And she has like 2 good friends that she has who are also like her coworkers, but other than that, she doesn't really have anything going on in her life. And her parents like live in Long Island while she's living in New York City, and the only other person that she was really close to was her aunt, and they would travel together every single year, and they would go to like different countries and everything. And she keeps talking about how her passport is filled. And I'm seeing the dynamic between her and the character Iwan, because she spends a few days in the past with him, and it's sort of like insta-lovey, because the first moment they meet, she's already attracted to him, and she kind of does something like unrealistic when they first meet, like sleeping in the same bed. That's awkward enough for the like a random stranger, and I don't know, it just seems so insta-lovey because they spend a few days together and all of a sudden she can't stop thinking about him, and it goes back and forth between the past and the present. So I'm liking it so far. The story is captivating in my attention enough to the point where I feel like I am going to finish this within the next like few hours, because it's not that long. It's like literally 324 pages. So I will be finishing this. It's just that I already know it's not going to be a favorite contemporary romance. I'm just not connecting to the characters, and the FMC is fine. It's just I don't know too much about the male main character, which is understandable because it's told from her perspective and not really his perspective, and he seems just to be a part of the background. So I will update in a little bit once I'm a little bit further into this book. I love that she talks a lot about books in this. She's sort of like a part of like a, I don't know, literary agency, but she says that she loves books, but most importantly, she likes travel books. I don't know about you guys, but I've never read a travel book that I was like super into. I just saw like a bunch of pictures, but to each their own, I guess. There is a quote that I really loved from this book though. Let me see. I loved how a book, a story, a set of words in a sentence, organized in the exact right order, made you miss places you've never visited and people you've never met. Explains exactly why I love books. It makes you travel to different worlds and gives you different characters to fall in love with, and it's just amazing. Her name is Clementine, and the guy nicknamed her Lemon. I don't know how to feel about that. So I actually spent the last few hours kind of binging this book. I'm like less than 100 pages away from finishing it, and I'm liking it. It's just that it's not living up to the hype that I thought it would. I think the only thing that I like is like maybe the FMC. She's dealing with a lot of things that come with dealing with a loss. And also make sure to check your trigger warnings, because there is like heavy topics that are kind of talked about in here. It's kind of talked about, yet not really talked about. It's kind of glanced over a little bit, which I don't know how to feel about, but it's getting me out of like this mood for a little bit, because it's keeping me occupied. I see that the female main character, she's trying to examine her life because ever since she lost her aunt, a lot of the things that she thought would have made her happy is not making her happy anymore. And she has a hobby of painting. She used to paint a lot of things on the like brochures or travel books of like the different places that she went. She has like little flashbacks of her and her aunt traveling like different places, different countries. She's not really a committed relationship kind of person. She tried to emulate her aunt's life her whole entire life because that's who she admired, but ever since her aunt passed away, she kind of had everything turned upside down. Obviously, because it's huge losing someone that you love, and now she's dealing with a lot of things on whether or not she loves her career, if the things that she wanted before, like being the big top executive that she always wanted and spent hours and hours of her life trying to strive for, is even what she wants anymore. And that's a lot to think about. I don't know if this book is kind of living up to the hype. It's good. I like the writing, and Ashley Poston's writing is very easy to get into, but I'm not too sure if like I'm that in love with the characters enough for me to say that's gonna be a favorite contemporary romance. And yes, there are like deeper topics that like is dealt with in this book, but at the same time I don't really like care too much for the characters. Like the male main character is okay. It kind of like goes back and forth between him being like 7 years younger and 7 years older between the time that they see each other, but between the dynamic of that and then I guess like the way the apartment works is that it only kind of like travels her back in time when it's sort of like what she needs. I guess that's how her aunt explained it to her, because her aunt also dealt with it taking her back into time. Again, like I said before, it's very insta-lovey. I feel the chemistry between them. I honestly think I like the person that he is more in the future rather than the one in the past, because I feel like there's more chemistry towards him rather than the one in the past. But I guess she's kind of hung up on the person that he was in the past and so on. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's getting me out of my slump and it's helping me get back into the mood of reading, which I am so grateful for. And I'm literally flying through this, and like I said, I have 100 pages left. I will most definitely finish it today, and I am so ready to be done with this video because as you can see, I cycle through so many books in this video. I'm just so ready to just like get back into reading and focusing on like a story and falling in love with the story. And that's what I miss about reading the most, because I love falling in love with characters and falling in love with the worlds. That's like my number one thing, and I love not being able to put a book down. I miss that feeling, and I haven't had that feeling in like 2 weeks. And I know in the span of time that doesn't seem like such a long time. I mean, I spent 10 years of my life not reading for a while, barely reading a book, at least maybe 1 or 2 books a year. So this is like kind of throwing me off a bit, but I think I'm making my way out of it at least. So I should have just done this in the beginning and just chose a contemporary romance, but like I said before, I was being stubborn. So I'm going to finish this and let you know my final thoughts. So I wanted to do a final wrap up for this vlog. I did end up finishing the 7-year slip, and overall I gave it a 3.75. I don't know. I kind of got like underwhelmed with it also because I know how loved this book is, and I felt like this book got a lot of hype, but I honestly just didn't feel connected to the characters. But I did finish it in one sitting, so I did start getting that desire back for wanting to ferociously read books again, which I'm so grateful for. I don't know why I just didn't dive into the contemporary romance genre right away as soon as I felt my slump coming in. It's just I think I was being stubborn. I wanted to keep on going with like fantasies and everything because there are some fantasies on my TBR that I need to read, but this did the trick. I'm so grateful because now I can move on to my other books, but this one was mediocre. I felt like the only person that I really liked in this whole entire story was the FMC. The male main character just kind of like didn't evolve at all. I felt like it was more of the female main character that we were focusing on in order for her to evolve, which is fine because she did go through a lot of hard things in this book. The main thing that this book focused on was her dealing with the grief of the loss of someone she loved, which is understandable because it's a big thing to go through, especially since she was so close to the person that she lost. But it felt kind of like unrealistic as a time traveling apartment can be. me, but it felt unrealistic with how she reacted to the male main character when they first met. He was such a stranger to her that he just like randomly showed up at her aunt's apartment despite like the magical things that supposedly happen in this apartment. I just felt like it was kind of glossed over too easily. For example, she shared a bed with him the first time that they met during the nighttime. I know she was trying to force him to leave because he saw how freaked out she was by all of this, but he had a letter by her aunt, but I don't know why she chose to just trust that at face value. I would have tried to like contact like my aunt or something, but you know what, it's okay, it's fine. This book did what it needed to do. Some of the things that happened in this book were very, very predictable. I felt like the connections that were made between the characters at the end that she was so surprised about kind of jumped out on the page for me the moment she started speaking about the male main character. So it wasn't even that surprising, and it kind of sort of like started throwing like twists in there that again I felt were very, very predictable. But I am so happy that I finally got out of this slump. Right now I am trying to currently read some of my TBRs. As you saw earlier, I tried to read Rifthold and that one was just boring the hell out of me, so I just wanted to like put it down. I feel like I would enjoy it, at least that's what I'm feeling right now, so we'll see when I ultimately finish it this month. But I wanted to give like a final review for this, and like I said, I gave it a 3.75 stars. I do recommend this, especially if you're looking for a palate cleanser just like I was for going through this slump. I do recommend it, but again, it's like kind of disappointing for me, but it did what I needed it to do. And then I'm going to give a final update on the book that I did start reading currently. I started reading Akarne. I hope that's how you pronounce it. It's by Lynette Noni. It's a young adult book that I'm actually really, really liking at the moment. I started hearing more about this on TikTok and also through Freya Valerio, I think her name is. I'll link her channel down below. She absolutely loves the series. The series is very, very similar to Harry Potter for me because it's set in an academic setting, but it's more fae based rather than wizard. At least that's what I'm like hearing about it so far. And when I started reading the first few chapters of it, I started getting that feeling again of when I started reading Harry Potter. So I hope this book will completely get me out of my slump also. I will be reading it in another vlog sometime maybe later on this month. We'll see. And we'll give like the final thoughts later on that. But I wanted to thank you all for watching and coming along with me on this journey in order to get out of this book slump. It's terrible when you're in a book slump. It's like one of the things that like bugs me the most about being a reader. If you fall in love with like a story or a whole entire world and then you stop reading it because you're either waiting for the next book to come out or you just can't get out of that feeling of being in that world. And then I kind of was like depressed a bit after I finished it because I honestly just wanted to go back to Onyx Storm. But I am so happy that I can move on again to different stories and I'm ready to read some more. If you want to see more videos like this, like and subscribe, leave a comment down below on what are your go-to remedies for getting out of a book slump. But anyways, thank you for watching and I'll see you all next time. Bye.